So, you raise existential questions in the book. So if I were to ask you today, what is it that will decide whether you should acquire a company or not? What are the parameters that you will look at?
I think that whenever I think about acquisitions, I always think about three things. In fact, I'm pretty transparent, and that's what even led to what is now a very successful integration of LinkedIn. One is, do we see the world the same? Which is, do we have compatibility of vision? In that case with Jeff and Reed, they wanted to be able to build this professional network that truly enabled the world's professional to realize their economic opportunity. We had the professional cloud with Office 365. Bringing those two things together helped us reinforce the mission. The second thing is, can we in fact integrate? Which is, it's not about just assimilation into Microsoft. Can Microsoft be better because of the talent that is coming in? That's why I have all the CEOs of companies that we acquired join our executive retreat so that we can learn. We're operating, in fact, LinkedIn very differently so that we can learn. And so you've got to have a real thesis of how is this integration going to work. And lastly, of course, it's got to make sense for our shareholders in terms of value creation. It's so exciting. In the last quarter, LinkedIn has re-accelerated. And to see that it's far ahead of even the financial plans that we had set in terms of it being accretive on a non-GAAP basis. And to me, ultimately, it's got to deliver value for our shareholders. But that only happens if you can integrate and, of course, if you have a vision that's compatible.
So let me just take that point forward since we're talking about LinkedIn. You talk about leadership and the role of a good leader being the ability to look at the external opportunities and connect that with internal capabilities as well as culture. In the context of where you see Microsoft today and the future, do you believe that it will be driven by inorganic growth or largely through organic growth?
I think as a spender of $11 billion plus in R&D, the fundamental bet is organic growth. We will always look for inorganic opportunities that make sense for us. We are continuously acquiring talent. LinkedIn was a big one, but we've bought many other companies that have in fact been very part and parcel of our cloud growth. So we will always be in the market. But the foundational bet or the foundational investment, whether it's the CapEx in our cloud or the OpEx in our R&D, is about organic growth. And it's great to see the growth that we see in mixed reality or the growth we see in our commercial cloud or gaming. It's another area of deep passion, another place where we acquired Minecraft, which is doing tremendously well for us.
Let me move and talk to you about the need to redefine the way that we look at multinational corporations. And you touch upon this in your book. You're meeting with Prime Minister Modi, I understand, later today. This need for MNCs to not operate merely by what the headquarter tells them to do. In the Microsoft context, more than 50% of your revenues come from outside of the US. You talk about the need to create local economic opportunities. How do you see the role of the MNC changing in the current context?
I think it's very important for any MNC, if we ever are to have a long-term business in any country, whether it's in India or in the United Kingdom or in the United States, it's all going to be dependent on what local opportunity and local economic surplus have we created. For example, whenever I come to India, one of my key things for my team that we look at is, okay, who are all the small businesses that are more productive because of something that we're doing? What are some of the public sector efficiencies that we can point to because of our technology? In fact, what are some of the large businesses? Even today we announced an partnership with Ola. And it is awesome to see here as a world-class entrepreneur building a world-class business that we can now make them more competitive, not only in India, but worldwide. Those, to me, are at the center. If we are not able to bring technology or bring products, of course, achieve our own economic success, but if that economic success is not breeding a larger surplus around us, there's nothing long-term stable, because every country, rightfully so, should ask, what has your participation in our economy done to create local opportunity? And that's what is front and center for Prime Minister Modi or President Trump or anyone else. And I, as a CEO,
are they asking the same questions of you?
Very similar. They always will have specific challenges and specific opportunities that are different depending on the context of the country. But when I think about my conversations that are happening, quite frankly, across all spectrum of the politics and countries, it's one universal thing, especially in today's age. where digital technology is playing such an increasing role in every walk of life, in every part of our economy, in every part of the globe. Their question is, how do they deal with it? How does that translate into equitable growth? Because that, I think, is the challenge, which is there is definitely a real need for not only productivity growth and capital to have return, but there needs to be real return for labor, and there needs to be real job creation, there needs to be real economic opportunity.
You know, you talked about productivity. I'll add the other two P's that the world is concerned about, and that is populism and protectionism. As the CEO of Microsoft, as an immigrant who's made a life for himself, a career for himself in the US, when you hear these conversations about visa bans, etc., how does that make you feel? And I think I remember reading in your book that you let that pass while you started your career in the US, but you believe that this is going to be an issue for your children, for instance, that they're going to have to deal with racial slurs. How does that impact you?
I think that one of the things that's going to be a real currency for any society, whether it's the United States, whether it's India, anywhere in the world, is to have the people who are in your country already feel that they're able to participate in the opportunities that are getting created. Because I think the cohesion of a broader society only comes about when there is growth and equitable growth. I think sometimes there is going to be reactions, you can call it populism or what have you, when that equation of equitable growth is broken. So the real challenge is to be able to not only have an enlightened immigration policy, make sure that society has tolerance, society welcomes people who are already there. It's not about even an immigration policy. But ultimately, though, the only way to create stability in that is to create economic growth for everybody. Because when I look back at the United States, at least what I have learned watching its history, it's the first country where so many people, in fact, people talk about the middle class or the working class aristocracy. That's a phenomena of the United States post-Second World War. And I'm inspired by that. And I think US has to rediscover it, and the rest of the world has to discover it for the first time.
You know, since we're talking about inclusion and equitable growth, I want to ask you about your ability to attract and retain more women in Microsoft, because you argue that it is poor business sense to not have women in the workforce. Globally, this is an issue, but what are you doing about it at Microsoft?
I think first and foremost, it's about making sure that the culture fosters inclusion, right? Because in some sense, we need two things to happen. One is, of course, the representation needs to improve. And as the representation improves, you want people to be able to do their best work, find that deeper sense of belonging in the company, which only will happen if the culture is inclusive. And we have to tackle both. In fact, one of the changes we've even made so that we can put more money where their mouth is to actually change the senior leadership compensation, including mine, to hit numeric goals of representation and progress. And of course, it's not sufficient. It's definitely one lever. But the real change will come about when we feel that we have a culture that allows, whether it's women or whether it's ethnic minorities, to feel that sense of belonging and that sense that they can do their very best work.
So let me end then with cricket, because that's what you're passionate about, Satya. You know, what would, in the last 3 years, what would you say your batting average has been, and Dhoni or Virat Kohli?
I mean, clearly, when I think about the two of them, the last thing I want to do is pick amongst two icons. But the point is, both of them have served Indian cricket.
Leadership is about making choices, right?
I'll pick both of them on my side.
Batting average?
My batting average is a 0 because I don't play cricket, I watch cricket.
Satya Nadella, pleasure speaking with you. Many thanks for joining us here on CNBC TV18 and wishing you all the very best with your plans here in India and Microsoft.
Thank you so much.
Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up this CNBC TV18 special from all of us here. Goodbye. Many thanks for watching.